Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective here, your Christian nerd bringing you analysis, reviews, and fun. In this video, we're going to be comparing two translations that are closely related, the Holman Christian Standard Bible and the Christian Standard Bible. These two translations, the Holman Christian Standard and the Christian Standard Bible, as I said, are related, and I've actually done a comparison of these two translations before, so you can check that video out. A lot of people have questions about how these two are related to each other and what the differences are, so I thought it would be good to do another video talking about this. It's a pretty fascinating subject. The Holman Christian Standard Bible came out in the early 2000s. I think it was completed in 2004. It was updated, I know, in 2009. And it was somewhat popular, but it was more of a niche translation and didn't gain wide popularity. And then in 2017, Holman, who owns the rights to that translation, updated it and did an extensive update, and they renamed it the Christian Standard Bible. So the Christian Standard Bible essentially is an update of the Holman Christian Standard Bible. They're really similar in many ways, but there are some differences. And I think a big question that comes to people's mind is, well, which one is better? And really, as with many things, that's just a matter of opinion and what you are looking for in a translation. So I'm going to show you some examples here of the Holman Christian Standard Bible and compare it a little bit to the Christian Standard Bible. And basically, I just want to show that the Holman Christian Standard was really a unique translation, and I'll give you some ways in which it was unique. The first one is that the Holman Christian Standard Bible had less traditional wording than a lot of other translations. Even than the Christian Standard Bible, it's less traditional in its wording. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is here in Matthew chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount. Notice on the left where we have the Holman Christian Standard Bible. In the Beatitudes it says, "The poor in spirit are blessed. Those who mourn are blessed. The gentle are blessed." And then in the Christian Standard Bible, it reads, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the humble." You can see there that the Holman Christian Standard Bible has wording that you typically don't see, where the word blessed comes at the end. But the Christian Standard Bible puts blessed at the beginning of the Beatitude, and that's traditionally how we see it. Another example is the term justify, which the Holman Christian Standard Bible sometimes translates in a more unique way. So you'll notice here that I have examples of where the Holman Christian Standard Bible translates the term as declared righteous. Declare righteous. You see that several times here in the book of Romans where it talks about being declared righteous. If you compare that to the Christian Standard Bible, at the beginning of Romans it says, "Therefore, since we have been justified by faith," whereas in the Holman Christian it said, "Therefore, since we have been declared righteous by faith." So again, you can see that the Holman Christian is less traditional in its wording. It uses that term declare righteous. Now, it does have the term justify in places, but it also uses the phrase declare righteous, whereas the Christian Standard Bible would tend to go with that traditional wording justify. Another feature of the Holman Christian Standard Bible that's kind of related to the first thing I was talking about is some unique terms that are used in the Holman Christian. One would be the translation of God's name. And there are many places, if you look here, where you can see that the Holman Christian translated the name of God, instead of L-O-R-D in capitals, it translates it as Yahweh. And so there are quite a few places. So I think here in this search it actually shows here 611 times where you'll find the word Yahweh, the name of God, in the Holman Christian Standard Bible. Another unique term would be the term doulos in the New Testament is translated as slave, whereas a lot of translations will translate it as servant. But here you see in Philippians, for example, Paul and Timothy, slaves of Christ. And in Philippians 2:7, instead he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave. Now that's interesting, those two terms that I pointed out. For those of you who follow my channel and have been hearing about the Legacy Standard Bible, you know that those are two terms that they are planning to translate in this way that you see in the Holman Christian. So the Holman Christian was actually like what the Legacy Standard Bible is going to be when it comes to these particular terms. So I think that is really interesting. But in the Christian Standard Bible, you'll see, again, more of traditional terms. You'll see the name of God typically as Lord, Lord. And then you will also see for doulos the term servant most commonly. So again, the Christian Standard Bible just went with more of a traditional mainstream approach, whereas the Holman Christian was more unique and innovative. Another feature of the Holman Christian Standard Bible is how it deals with the Textus Receptus readings. And what I find when I look at the Holman Christian is that it's pretty subtle in how it deals with this issue. So if you look, for example, in Matthew chapter 6, the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus is giving the Lord's Prayer, what we traditionally call the Lord's Prayer, at the end it says, "Do not bring us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen." So at the end of verse 13 there, it does have that traditional Textus Receptus ending, but it's in brackets. If you look here at the Christian Standard Bible, verse 13, it says, "And do not bring us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one." And then there is no bracketed text there. So the difference you're going to see is in the footnotes how they deal with this. And it does say here in the Holman Christian, other manuscripts omit bracketed text. In the Christian Standard Bible, some later manuscripts add, "For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever." So you can see there that the Christian Standard Bible puts the Textus Receptus reading in the footnote, whereas the Holman Christian actually put it in the text but put it in brackets. Another similar example of this would be in John chapter 5. In the Holman Christian, you can see here, if you look at the end of verse 3, that there's bracketed text here, whereas in the Christian Standard Bible, at the end of verse 3, they're just going to have a footnote there. And the footnote says verses 3b and 4, and it gives the Textus Receptus reading in the footnote. So you can see there that the Holman Christian Standard Bible did have some Textus Receptus readings that are in the text but in brackets. And also an interesting one would be the end of Mark, chapter 16. And you'll see that the ending of Mark here in the Holman Christian Standard Bible is in brackets from verses 9 to the end of the chapter. What the Christian Standard Bible does is it says some of the earliest manuscripts conclude with Mark 16:8, and then it talks here about the longer ending of Mark in this heading here, and then it does give the text. So again, what you see there is that the Holman Christian Standard Bible is just more subtle. It's not really making as much of an issue as to the Textus Receptus versus the critical text, whereas the Christian Standard Bible is a little bit more overt, I would say, in its use of the critical text. And one more example of this very thing is in the end of John chapter 7 to the beginning of John chapter 8. You will see here again that the Holman Christian Standard Bible is just going to put this passage in bracketed text, whereas the Christian Standard Bible is actually going to have a note here saying the earliest manuscripts do not include this passage. One more feature that I noticed about the Holman Christian Standard Bible versus the Christian Standard Bible is in the area of footnotes. And if you compare the two translations, what you'll notice is that generally speaking, the Holman Christian Standard Bible has more extensive footnotes than the Christian Standard Bible. So you can see that here in John chapter 8. Here, for example, in Matthew chapter 6, again, you see that there's a bit more footnotes in the Holman Christian Standard Bible versus the Christian Standard Bible. So I didn't check every single passage throughout the whole Bible, but I did kind of spot check, and I noticed that generally speaking, it seems like the Holman Christian Standard Bible has a bit more extensive footnotes. So that's another interesting difference. At the end of the day, which one is better? Well, it really depends on your opinions, your preferences, and how you want to use the translation. For me, I would say that the Holman Christian Standard Bible is better for personal study. I really like some of the uniqueness of it, and I feel like those terms that are translated in unique ways are really helpful for my personal study. When they contrast with other translations that I have, it's nice to have those unique terms. Also, I like those extensive footnotes. So those features that are unique to the Holman Christian Standard Bible, that make it kind of quirky and different than other translations, to me are great for personal study. But when it comes to general use and using it in public, I like that the Christian Standard Bible is more like what people are used to. So that if I'm getting up and I'm reading the Beatitudes and someone's looking at a different translation and I say, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," their translation is probably going to say something very similar to the Christian Standard Bible. And so I think for public and general use, the Christian Standard Bible has some advantages. At the end of the day, they're both great translations that are pretty much the same translation in many ways, because the Christian Standard Bible is an update of the Holman Christian Standard Bible. So that's something to keep in mind. I would love to hear what you think in the comments below, and as always, thank you for listening to what I have to say from a Frisch Perspective.